Hello everyone, my name is Paschalis Agapitos, and today I will present you our study on how clusters of notability features in Wikipedia biographies connect across time. Starting with a research question, we are trying to answer how do connectivity patterns between clusters of notability features in the English Wikipedia change throughout time. To answer this question, we first need to extract the biographies. This is done by matching English Wikipedia titles classified as Q5 entities, which in Wikidata are the humans, with their corresponding Wikipedia pages. From the January 23rd, 2025 dump, we retrieved approximately 1.94 million biographies. The next step involves extracting the notability features. In Wikipedia, a notability feature can be a profession, a skill, or any characteristic that made someone notable. For example, Maya Angelou is notable as an American memoirist and poet. Note that an individual, and as it can be seen in the example above, an individual can have more than one notability features, but to minimize noise we only consider the first two features, if present. To do that, we employed a rule-based algorithm to detect these features from its biography. Biographies that do not mention a notability feature in the first sentence, or for a reason our algorithm didn't manage to extract successfully the notability features, are excluded from this study. We then built a directed biography-to-biography network, where nodes are biographies and edges represent links between them. There are some isolated nodes that are removed from this study. Using contextual embeddings and agglomerative clustering, we group notability features into thematic clusters. For each cluster and century, we calculate edge weights by normalizing the number of connections against the total for that century. This reveals how much each cluster interacts over time. On the left, you see the 14 clusters that we defined, and you see labels such as dramaturgical arts, applied arts, music, literature, etc. You can also see the number of biographies per cluster. It's easily observed that sports and government and law have a little bit less than half of the total number of biographies in the English Wikipedia, which made them two very dominant clusters. On the right, we show the number of connections per century in a logarithmic scale. We decided to use the 6th century before Common Era as our starting point for the analysis, since from then onward we observe a consistent growth in the number of connections. We also decided to exclude the 21st century from the analysis, since it is an ongoing century. For the first step of the analysis, we classify all connections into 4 link types based on temporal and thematic proximity. To correct for differing cluster sizes and historical documentation bias, we normalized the link frequencies. We observe that since the 14th century, which can be considered the beginning of the Renaissance, an upward trend shows that most connections occur between people of the same century, but from different clusters. This suggests an increased interdisciplinary referencing over time in the English biographies. We then ask, which clusters act as bridges across time? To answer this question, we use between centrality in order to identify clusters that frequently lie on the shortest path between others. We observe that government and law, humanities and philosophy, and religion consistently serve as bridges throughout history. There is also a very interesting outlier, which is the literature cluster in the 2nd century Common Era, that stands out with the highest between centrality score in the entire network. Here we have just 24 figures that are mostly Roman and Chinese authors that form a key conduit between otherwise disconnected areas of the network. Finally, we apply the HITS algorithm. HITS stands for Hyperlink Induced Topic Search. We want to identify influential hubs and authorities. Hubs are nodes that link to many others, and authorities are nodes that receive many links from other nodes. Again, we see that government and law, humanities and philosophy, and religion rank high in both categories. However, we can also detect some major shifts. For instance, we have science that rises significantly after the 13th century, aligning with the very beginning of Renaissance. Dramaturgical arts also surged in the 16th century, affected probably by the Elizabethan theatre and figures such as William Shakespeare. Then, in general, we observe that the 14th century Common Era, which aligns with the beginning of Renaissance or the very beginning of the spread of the printing press, act as a turning point for multiple clusters that afterwards gain centrality. To conclude, constructing this study required navigating large-scale data complexity and systemic bias that exist within the environment of Wikipedia. We found that cross-cluster, same-century links increased after the 14th century, probably reflecting some broader historical shifts. Certain clusters consistently mediate inter-domain flow, especially religion, philosophy, and government, which can serve as an indicator of their centrality in the Western culture. Note that we use only the English Wikipedia. A few strategically placed individuals, like the 2nd century literary figures, disproportionately shaped the structure of the network, connecting otherwise disconnected areas of the network. And lastly, influence is not fixed. For specific clusters, we see that between centrality and hit scores surge in specific periods, showing that cultural centrality is historically contingent. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed it.